His research is The Story of Humankind from the Cradle of Humankind, and his book is Slave Species of God. I have it linked up on the site, and you can also, it has a direct link to where you can buy the book. And who or what do you believe created the prehistoric man thousands or possibly millions of years ago? Could the prehistoric man be from a natural evolution of Earth?
Yeah, I don't think that the man as we see man today, Homo sapiens, that not according to my research. My research tells me very, very categorically that that's not possible, because very simply, if that was possible, we would have seen evidence of the intermediate evolutionary phases. We go from a brain half the size of a human to suddenly the brain the size that we have in one evolutionary jump, and that just doesn't make any evolutionary sense. That's just if you stick to basic evolutionary principles.
Yes, sir.
And many anthropologists and archaeologists will argue with you, and they'll quote this guy and they'll quote that guy and so forth. I mean, I just had an email from the head of archaeology and anthropology at the University of Pretoria, who in a nutshell told me that, there's no point of us meeting because we just disagree completely. So we won't agree on anything. So let's not meet because it's going to be completely counterproductive. That's how open-minded these guys are. It's unbelievable. Oh. They're just not ready to discuss anything. They live in their boxes. They live in their textbooks. And they regurgitate what they read in their textbooks. But when you start walking up the mountains and doing the research, you realize that what you discover is not written in any textbook anyway. So, it's not you're not gonna read it anyway. You're gonna have to rewrite the textbooks.
Mm-hmm. This wasn't my next question, but I guess I'll go ahead and ask you anyways. Why do you think history needs to be revised, or how do you think history is controlled and written down by the victors?
Well, that's a very interesting model, and if you start using a scientific principle model, you're going to get some very interesting answers. If you realize, I mean, we get told all the time that history is written by the victors, right?
Yes.
And we don't really think about what it means. Okay, we don't think about what it means, but basically, what it means is that every time there's a global conflict, at least 50% of the information gets lost. At least. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because whoever wins the war rewrites the history books to slant and represent what their belief system is, and then they try and erase everything from history, anything about the people that they conquered. I mean, we know nothing about the civilizations and the people that Alexander the Great conquered, that he enslaved, that he killed, that he raped, that he murdered villages, towns, entire countries, and we know nothing about those people. All we know is that they were conquered by Alexander the Great.
Conquistadors that burned thousands of books. The Spanish.
Well, exactly.
And it's just. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so Michael, so when you start breaking down, so every time there's a conflict and you lose 50% of the information, right? If you do the numbers, by the time you get to event number 8 wars, 8 conflicts, we already know less than 1%. We know less than 1% of the original truth. Okay, now you got to ask yourself, how many wars and conflicts have there been in 6,000 years since our civilization started in Sumeria between the Tigris and Euphrates? Because we are the byproduct. We think we're the pinnacle of that civilization that started there. However, we know nothing about those people, or very little about those people. But in 6,000 years, how many wars do you think we've had? Thousands and thousands.
Yes.
And yet when you get to event number 8, we already know less than 1%. And then after 124 global or regional events or skirmishes or conflicts, we know less than 10 to the power of 34 of what we originally knew. That means 0, 34 zeros.
It's a lot of zeros.
Okay, that 10 to the minus 34. That's how much we know, which is physically not allowed because that's also known as Planck's constant, right? And Planck's constant is Max Planck, the father of quantum physics, is basically is the smallest amount of energy at which matter can exist. So, after only 124 global wars, we know less than what is permissible by physics. So I just want to tell you this so that you understand how little we actually know about our history and our human origins, because our history books that we teach at school and at university are so skewed and so convoluted that you can't believe anything.
Yet we believe we know it all, and if someone like yourself or if I mention anything we're discussing right now to anybody that's in college or some other higher field of knowledge and education, they always look at you kind of like belittle you, like what do you know? Like this isn't what my textbook tells me. You're wrong. You're a liar. You're a conspiracy theorist, or they try to put you down just because. I don't know why. Maybe it's cognitive dissonance. I don't know. It really aggravates me, though.
Well, and it should aggravate. I think you must use that aggravation in a positive way. Don't let it. Understand where these people come from. They are trapped in the system. They are the product of the system that was specifically devised to create them as a product.
Yes.
So you're liberated. You're free from the prison. Because you know it, you have freed yourself from this matrix, from the prison that has been created for us. While we're on the subject, I must tell you that you've got to understand that this is what a new book is all about. It's called The Secret Numbers of God, that I'm working on with a brilliant scientist called Willem de Swart here in Johannesburg. And it really unravels the entire mystery of the universe, its structure, its geometry, and how it's all been put together with some really advanced, bizarre program, because everything seems to fit. Nothing is out of place. And it's become very clear to us now that just like our computers are programmed by two numbers, ones and zeros, right, in the binary code, we as human beings are just far more advanced computers of a cybergenetic nature, okay? Remember
I totally agree.
And we're programmed and controlled by 10 numbers, 1 to 9 and 0. So we're just a far more advanced and seemingly intelligent computer, and we think we have this freedom and this reality while we're just programmed by the 10 numbers. And we live in this weird reality that is probably not even real. And this is what our latest research shows so eloquently, that everything that we think is real is just probably a consequence of this very advanced program of which we're a part of. It gets very, very interesting, I must tell you.
It's very fascinating. And back to what we were talking about colleges and academia, about them having an open mind and thinking outside the box. Like I believe it was I believe it was you who I might have been someone else. I think I heard somebody on Coast to Coast, but I think it was you who said, just because you can't see ultraviolet light doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Well, exactly. And that you'll find those are some of the arguments you find all the time, especially with the young academics or people that are not well informed, that are ignorant of many things. They'll use arguments like, well, I've never heard of that, and they use that as a scientific, well, that's not a scientific argument. It just means that you're ill-informed.
Or how do you know you're right? That's what I hear, like, how do you know that researcher that you're reading or that you're listening to is right? Well, my question is, how do you know what you're being taught in school is right,
Yeah.
Well, exactly. What we're talking about.
Yeah. So what I want to tell you is just feel pity and feel sorry for these people at university, because what happens as well, and I speak from experience because I spent 6 years or 5 years at Wits Medical School University, so studying pharmaceutics and genetics and all the stuff that you study in putting drugs together, and so I know how it goes. There's a huge amount of arrogance that is associated with going to university. people who go to university sometimes get completely the wrong impression, is that they're getting some sort of an advantage over others